Section number 4, the results story. So results, let's talk about goals first, because I think that's the thing that's the easiest and everybody has access to. So we're going to go into admin, and our goals, much like filters, are associated to the views they are in. So here, you can also create goals to play around with things. Sort of say like, okay, I'm not sure if this is going to do what I want it to do. I'm not sure if this is going to be a useful result, right? Maybe it's just a good idea, but you're not really sure if it's going to be tracking properly or not. So you set it up in a test view, run it through, give it a little bit of traffic, see if it works the way you want it to. And then you're like, yeah, it totally works. Then you flip into your production views. And then when you're in your production view, then you can set up your goals. So very simple to do that. You just click on new goal. The trick to analytics, this, by the way, is I know they're trying to help, but this is just annoying to me.
I never use that stuff. Ever.
Man, ever. I'm the same way. I'm like, get rid of that. So this is their idea of trying to help you out. The problem is this is different for everybody because it's based on the business, whatever business type the account is linked to. So if you said that you're an educational institution, it'll give you different things. That's why donate, evidently, they decided was a thing for me. I don't know why, because we're educational. But you might not see this, right? So it's just basing this on. But all it does is literally put in the word like, it's the most useless thing. So I just click custom. I suggest you to skip through it because all it would do is here say donate. Like that's it. I'm like, okay, I can figure this out. I guess it does give you ideas, but you're going to get those from this training, so you won't need it. So we're going to say custom. Then you click on the name, type in whatever you want, right? Then you've got 4 different types. You're primarily going to use 2 different ones for the most part. Destination is the easiest to get started with. And that's the one I would suggest if you're just starting out. All that is you telling Google Analytics when it either equals this thing, which think like exact match is kind of what this is, or it begins with a certain thing, or if you have a little more skills, you can go to a regular expression. So we won't cover that in this training, but it gives you a little bit more of the advanced stuff. So in this case, I wanted to say, okay, anything that begins with, and I would use, in my case, I would use because I have this in my analytics, again, huge pro tip, the way that analytics works, and the way that I'm about to show this to you, if you do it like this, you'll never go wrong with goals. So I'm going to go into my site content. I'm going to go to all pages. And what I'm asking Google Analytics to do, quite literally for the goals, is when you see something come across in your database that matches this thing, fire the goal. So if I wanted to know when somebody hit my dashboard and that was the goal, then I would do this. I would literally copy this out as it shows in the database. For some of you, right, for other, and this is because I'm in this view. For my other views, if I go into like a backup view, which again is unfiltered, so you're going to see a radically different version of this. If I go back into that site content all pages, you're going to see it doesn't look like that. So this unfiltered view doesn't look like that. It looks like this. So I would copy this out instead. But what I'm doing is so for the view that I'm in, I just copy it out and I'm going to paste it in. This view, it looks like this. So I'm going to tell Google Analytics, whenever you see this come across, anything that begins with dashboard, I know they've logged in. So let's call that a logged in member and then fire that off. And of course, I can assign a value to that if I want. You could build funnels out of that if I want. And of course, you can verify. So verifying is really just Google Analytics saying, hey, here's what I see happening. In this case, I'm looking for any number at all that's not 0 if I know there's data back there. Now, why does it show 0 for me here? Because this is only my marketing people. I have literally filtered out all of my members. So it should be 0. So that actually makes sense in my case. But if I come back here and say measuremarketing.io, which is like anything that begins with my homepage, if I click on re-verify, it's going to say, oh yeah, that's basically everybody, right? The only people that it's not are people that come into my Infusionsoft sales pages or order forms. So, or Gendy, webinars, things like that. So that also makes sense for me. But this is how you can use destination goals. Super easy to get running. If you don't have a client that has e-commerce and you can't get them to set it up, you can put in a value, kind of a quick and easy way to get an idea of like, when somebody hits my thank you page, then make them worth $97 or whatever. Just at least get an idea of what's going on. So again, easiest to set up destination goals. Events, a little more complicated to set up only because there are no events by default. You have to push them into Google Analytics. But if you have the event, like in my case, I could set up an event and then say, I want to do in a category where it has engagement, right? So I'll say begins with engagement. The action is video because I want them to be engaged with the video and that they watched for at least 25% because that's just how I coded it in our events. So I can do things like that. And then, but you don't have to have all these. I could just say, hey, anything that happens to have the word video in it, then I know interacted with a video, and I could just do that, just do the one thing if I wanted. So that's how you can do events. And again, how do you use goals? Like when you're thinking about this idea of, and this took me years to figure out to teach, is people would be like, okay, I get the idea of how to do a goal. I just don't know what a goal should be. And that's the hard part, I think, to some of this is not just setting up the goals, because there's lots of ways to figure out how to do that. It's what the goal should be. And that's where ACE comes in. And ACE will help you, especially as an agency, because you've got a challenge. And your challenge is the client sending a bunch of emails that's closing sales, and they're not being attributed to you. And you're obviously doing something, right? They're spending money with you. You are sending eyeballs their way. Those eyeballs are doing something, and they're probably ending up in emails, and they probably end up buying, but you're like 7 or 8 steps behind, so you can't prove it. ACE goals will help you with this. They'll help you tell the story. So what ACE stands for is awareness, right? Completion and engagement. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up goals that are triggered when the user is aware of something that they're supposed to do, when they've now completed the thing you want them to do, and as they engaged along the way. And I'm going to give you a very simple example of this. So in our goals, let me cancel this out. I'll go into our goals here. Cancel the whole thing. There we go. So in our goals, you're going to see we've got Academy. This is for the Measurement Marketing Academy. So Academy, first step, sales page. That's my awareness goals. First, they are aware of the sales page. So now they are aware, at this point, they are now aware of this as a product. Second thing that's here is my engagement goal, which was they are now engaging with the process that I wanted to engage with, which is they've clicked through and they're now seeing the cart page. And then I've got a purchase goal, which is they've completed, right? So A is the awareness, completion is the purchase, engagement along the way is the cart. So, and I'll show you, it's very simple how to set this up. Thank you pages, right? So here's just, hey, if it's has the Academy thank you page, then let's trigger that. And the other one is if they see the Infusionsoft cart page, then trigger that. They're very simple. You don't need to overly complicate them, right? This is just the order form page for the monthly membership for the Academy. So those get triggered. Now, how those work, and this is where the secret sauce comes in, is you go into acquisition, you go into source medium, and let's say I jump into my traffic sources. So I want to now know, because I have goals set up, I can click over here and I can say, okay, let me just do this, change to a more recent time period. Give us a little less to play with here. So now I can go down and I can say, okay, I want to see what traffic sources are creating awareness for the thing I want them to be aware of, right? In this case, Academy. So I can see I've got some direct traffic that's coming in. Now, it does make sense we're going to have a little bit more direct traffic than your average bear because our brand name is our company name, is our website name. So measuremarketing.io does get natural direct traffic. But I can also see that Google Organic, if I skip past that, I can see Google Organic is causing some awareness of the Academy. I can see Infusionsoft emails are causing awareness of the Academy as a product. I can see our sister site over at Seriously Simple Marketing is causing awareness. And then I can say, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, let's dive into this Google Organic. What happens there? What's the story behind this traffic source? So I can see that it causes awareness. Does anybody actually engage, right, in this period of time? So then what's the journey, right? So how many of those actually went into the cart, theoretically? So I'm, okay, Google Organic's got about, 2 out of the 12. So let's call that roughly 20%. Are actually engaging with my process. And then I can say, okay, well, did any of them purchase? In this case, I happen to know it's none, but it drops off there and it's like, oh no, take that back. We have one, that actually completed the purchase goal. So, and we just don't have a goal value. That's why it said 0 there. But there's a purchase that actually occurred. So I had somebody from Google Organic Traffic, surprise, surprise, right? That actually caused some sales for me, but it caused a lot of awareness. And here's what's cool about, from an ad perspective, like if I had the talent to run ads, I can measure anything, but running traffic, not my game. But I would come through, if I had the power, I would come through and I would tell the story all the way through. And I'd say, here's the ad set. And this is my, let's say, Google CPC traffic. And I've got this content section for differentiators for my UTMs. And I can code it to say something like, this is designed for the awareness. And so here's what the awareness traffic's doing. Then I retarget that with engagement-oriented traffic. And I can see that spelled out here. And I can then say to my clients, hey, this is actually what's causing engagement. You can see the engagement levels rising now. Here's what it was. Now it was 2, and they'll see it grows up to 4 or 5. And then here's the Google ads that are designed to actually close the sale, right? And like Mike was talking about earlier, you're moving in through the customer journey. And you can see that associated to goals instead of just having to rely on 100% e-commerce results as they come through. So So that's how this actually works and how this happens. So it helps you tell the story when you use ACE goals, because you're not measuring just for that final sale. You're measuring for the first part, which is like, hey, are they even a thing? And you're like, yeah, now I know you sell shoes. Great. Bam, awareness goal. Then your marketing switches. And for that person, you're going to retarget. Now say, now I want you to figure out what the different quality shoes are. And let's target you so you start engaging with the shoe shopping journey. And then once that happens, you go, bam, goal achieved. It goes, great. All the ads switch. And now they start talking about, hey, here's a reason to buy shoes today. Right? Here's those 11 size shoes that just came in, or whatever the thing is that you grouped them by. Then you close them. And that's what those ads are designed to do. But of course, if you start with, hey, here's shoes today you can buy, that's just annoying to everybody. Right? Because they may not, some people will be ready for that, but not everybody will. And it's expensive to advertise like that.
It's so important. I talk about this from a slightly different angle, but it's a very similar sort of story, that if you only focus on what we're looking at here, 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 80 new users, you're saying like one of these things was good, and you're saying all of the other 99 are all equally bad. But we just saw that there's these, it is never black and white. There are shades of gray. Some of them are aware, some of them, a few are engaged, and then yes, a tiny few down the end are completing. But now you can think about your traffic with a little more nuance, like particularly if you're running GDN campaigns or something like that. You can't, with a lower conversion rate, can't be looking at that and going, yeah, 99 out of 100 are all equally crap. Let's get rid of all of that, exclude those placements, turn those campaigns off, because some of those placements, some of those campaigns are creating this aware traffic, and that's the stuff that we want to then go double down on. Now, just before you dive out of thanks, Gabe. Before we dive out of the goals bit here, Luke was asking, and he's been patiently waiting for me to dive in and ask this question: Can you delete goals?
No, great question. So this is an example of what you can do. So so in analytics doesn't really care about the goal name, even though that's all we ever see, right? In analytics, we always look at this. Analytics cares about this. So it has a series of slots that are created for goals. And as soon as you create one, it assigns it a slot. And so once that's in there, and technically you can control this, but nobody ever does. And it's rare that you would really
naming thing to have these like 4 sets with 5 goals in each. I don't know why they still do this.
It's because one of the reports actually uses that in a structure, but it's buried so far deep that it's like the one use case you would have for that, it's cool. But the other 99% of the time, it's just annoying. Right. And I think that's why it's not used all that much. But this is the slot that's open. But once it's open, think about this in terms of data integrity. So if you could delete a goal, all the data also gets deleted, right? And analytics is not going to let you do that. It's not going to let you do that because it would change the past, right? And if you change the past, then your data doesn't have integrity anymore. You can't trust it because you can change it. And if marketers could, they probably would. So it's where data, it's basically saying, hey, just for sake of data integrity, once that slot is active and it has data stored in it, you cannot get rid of that slot, right? You can't mess with the database. So what you do is what we've done here is you just turn them off, right? And then actually what we should do in this case, I'm going to do this now. So we turn them off, and then what I'll do is I'll name them. So I'm just going to change the name of this and say this is, let's see, what is it, July now? So I'm going to say January. So this is good for January 2020. I can recycle it then. And that's what I'll do.
Explain what you mean by recycle, because that's
what I'm doing is I'm basically turning this off. It's going to stay off until January of 2020. Then at that point, I'll just rename it to like open goal or something like that somebody can use as a slot. The reason I'm giving a nice 6 months long space in between these goals is because that way, because remember, the analytics doesn't care what you name it. It just cares about this. So if, for example, today I changed the definition of the sales page and I said, hey, I don't want the sales page to track this page anymore. I wanted to track anything that starts with LP now. And that's what I changed it to. Well, yesterday it was defined as this. Today it's defined as that. But to Google Analytics, they're not going to be able to tell the difference. It's going to say, hey, 1,000 people did it yesterday and 10 people did it today. And it's not going to show me a real big difference there. So that's why you want to leave a good space of time so that you don't have the challenge of actually looking at 2 different goals that are, what you think is the same goal, but really it's 2 different goals. So I just leave a big giant, I just turned it off. I'm going to come back in 2020 and then I'm going to keep it off, but that just lets the team know, don't use the slot until like 6 months from now. I'd rather, if they need to, create a new goal. We've got 2 of them down here still, right? They can do that. And again, if it's not a used goal, like in this case, it's not a used goal, I'd be like, the first thing that we do is just put this down here and say, January 2020. And normally I would say, oh, my team probably just turned that off accidentally. I guarantee you it was a training like this that I did. And I just showed you how you turn it off. And didn't follow through with my own training. Cobblers kids have no shoes.
Yes.
But this is how you do it. So that's exactly what I would do.
Very nice.
So, yeah, but it is a great question because people think about it all the time. Like, oh, what if I run out of goals? And remember, every view has 20 fresh goals that you can use, and you can have 25 views total. So that's a lot of goals. And that's why a view is important, because you do a view that's designed to answer certain questions. In my case, these are goals for Google Data Studio that it uses. But if I flip into a different view, it'll be different goals because that view needs to provide a different version of the story. So its goals might be more focused on free resources in the case instead of sales, like this one is. So that's how that whole thing works.
Luke says thank you.
Excellent. Appreciate the question. All right. So that's ACE goals. And then of course we talked about e-commerce already. The big deal with that is just making sure that it's enabled. So if you go into analytics and you don't see the information there under view settings, you go to e-commerce settings and just turn it on. So it'll automatically be off by default. You can turn it on for standard. If you want to use enhanced reports, or if your client wants to, you turn on for enhanced. This is where you set up the funnel steps for checkout and things like that. But again, how you set this up, completely beyond the scope, just because it's very different. Every single platform is different, but possible to set up e-commerce as well. So just be aware that is a result. If you don't have access to e-commerce, you're not, kind of just out of luck. You can also just assign a value to a goal and do it like that. It's not the best, most accurate way, but man, I always call accuracy the A word. I hate the A word. And initially with a client, I'm like, well, this isn't accurate. I'm like, forget accurate. You don't care about that. What you want it to be is useful, right? So I hear people all the time. They're like, well, I got 98% of my e-commerce is reporting right. And I'm like, listen, you can go down this rabbit hole and you can spend 25 man hours to go through here and spend your developer 30 grand to track down the extra 2%, of what's going on here. Or, right, you can ask yourself, if I get 99.9%, am I going to make a change? Is that going to change the actions I'm going to take?
Exactly.
The answer is no, it's not. You're going to make the same decision either way. So you are at the point of diminishing returns. Let's go focus on something else, right?
Yeah.
You've usefulness.
Yeah. What are you actually going to use that data for?
100%.
Because if you're not going to take an action on the data, there's no point having the data.
That's the key. You ask them about the action. Always bring it to the action. What action? Or to yourself. If you find you're going down a rabbit hole, you're like, well, okay, what actions would I take? Would this change? If I get the information, will it change the action I'm going to take? And if it does, if you're, for example, maybe the 2% of transactions that aren't reporting are your high-end $1 million mastermind. Okay, yeah, they probably could move the needle a little bit. So we want to make sure we're getting that product to report. But if it's just, probably people just have, cookies not activated on certain things, you lost some sales. Who cares? The usefulness is still there. And that's what matters, right? You always, in analytics, your job is to race to the useful truth, but don't race past that. Once you have a useful truth, you go, cool, I can actually do something with it. And then you move on.
That's a good line.
All right. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Mike already mentioned this earlier on, which is great, which is audiences. So this is where it really pulls into the whole Google Ads community. So as you go into Google Analytics, you will see audiences. Mike talked about one way to create them. You can also create them with segments. You can also create them here. You've got audience definitions that are coming through. So this is a really cool feature that basically takes all of the power of analytics sort of visibility into what the users are going through. And then you can define an audience, which is, I think of it like a segment, right? It's slightly different, but again, this is why it says you can import your own or you can create your own. But it's just a different version of a segment. But you can create this and say, okay, I want to see all these different, let's just do this. So create new, here's the segment module that pulls up. And you can create people that are on mobile devices that show up and buy more than $500, or that showed up and didn't buy, that saw the cart but did not purchase. You can do all of that stuff with segments, right? So this is the exact same user experience, the segment user experience. So those of you that have already used it. If you haven't, investigate it, because this is what slices and dices. This is what Mike was talking about. How do I know if people are aware? Well, they're going to have a certain behavior. They saw the sales page, but they did not see the cart page. So they're aware, but they did not buy, right? They didn't even engage. So now I don't want to go back and say, hey, here's $20 to go get shoes, because they didn't even click on the cart. They're probably not interested at all. Maybe it's a quality thing. Maybe I need to send them an ad that says, here's what 7 people are saying about our sandals. They just bought. And I'm like, oh, those people must love this. Let me go see. Maybe, or here's all about the quality, ads focusing on the quality of the shoe, right? Different things to get them to engage in the process. then you can, change as they buy. But this is how you do it. And once you connect the audiences back here, it'll go through and talk about, here's how many users and how long they should stay in the group. And then here's what it gets sent into. So lots of cool stuff. Not that hard to set these up. Mostly just got to know that they're a thing. And then they'll plug into your audience definitions. Also, something else that plugs into Google Ads, we didn't mention earlier, but goals. So in Google Ads, you can say, I want to say Academy Sales is a goal, right? And we're talking about like, hey, sale made. This is my first sale. I want them to notice that we have a product. My second sale is I want them to actually be interested in buying the product, right? And go to the cart page. My third sale is ultimately I want them to purchase it. Some people will go through all three in a single session, right? Most will not. Most will just be aware and then leave, but some will be engaging. And now I know who I'm talking to, and I know what ads need to actually go through and have their messaging to carry on. So that's kind of the idea behind that, and how these things, especially with the platforms of Google Ads and Google Analytics, how they can work together. All right, so we'll cover what just happened. So we talked about goals. We've got lots of different flexibility with that. So you've got destination goals based on kind of URL stuff. If it's something more specific, like I wanted to track a goal of how far somebody scrolled down the page, I can do that with an event goal because I'm tracking scroll rate because of Google Tag Manager or played a video or something like that. So I can measure all of that. We talked about ACE goals, and here's our example of what the ACE goal would be. A very simple example, but they're aware here at the sales stage. When they see the sales page, they complete the goal to purchase. They engage along the way by seeing the cart. So that's an example there. Other versions of this are maybe it's a sales page and they start to scroll. That could trigger engagement. You can do that as well. So there's lots of cool ways to do this. And then finally, I did not show you this, but I'm going to go back and show you this. This is where you can set up funnels in Google Analytics, and this is under the goals section. And I'm going to show you what this looks like here. I think I have I'm going to type in funnel. These are my funnels. This is why I name it funnel dash, so I can easily find it, by the way. Little pro tip, especially when you have a lot of goals. So here's our funnel for Win Monthly Pass. So if I go here, I can see that this is the thank you page. Okay, this is the goal that's being triggered when they hit the thank you page. Then they have steps. I've turned on this funnel to say, okay, first, in the funnel tracking reports, I want the funnel tracking reports to only tell me the story of people who saw the courses page first, which in this case is kind of our main courses page that shows all the different Win courses we have. Then the monthly pass offer, which is the kind of the, all you can eat plan. Then people that saw the cart. Then after they saw the cart, they see the thank you page. So that's what I want it to do. Now, misconception number one around this report is when I set this up, people think, great, this goal will only fire when they go through all of these steps. And the answer is absolutely not. Google Analytics does not care. This goal will fire whenever this happens. So if I go directly to this page, it will fire this goal no matter what. The only things that care about these steps that you set up here are the reports right down here, which are funnel visualization and goal flow. So I'm going to show you funnel visualization because I think it's the easiest one to get through and kind of understand. Funnel visualization, so first you're going to choose your goal. This is, again, why I call them funnels, so it's easy to find here. So click on funnel, and you can see the story really easily. That's what I like of this report. So I can see here's where they were before they were on my course page. So, most of them just entered directly on the course page. Some of them came from the home page, others came from other product pages, etc. And most of them left, as happens. Some of them, right, half of the ones that left just left right on that page, but other ones went to go explore other areas. They were looking at other Win courses primarily. Some went to go for a resources page, some went back to the home page.
So is the way to think about that then that they exited the funnel rather than exited the site?
This in an exit is exited the site. Here, exited the funnel. Exactly.
Right.
So it's both. Yep. So 390 exited the funnel, 142 by leaving the site. Like that was the last page they saw in that session. Others continued their session in a different direction. That's all. Yeah. Right. So then it's, okay, 20% of them actually went through and saw the monthly pass offer. And of those, again, 56 left, 25 of them were done at that point and just left the site. Others went back to the courses page, look at some other courses. Others take a look, different products. Then half of them, right, 46% went to the cart, which is pretty good click-through rate. So then we've got monthly pass offer to the cart page. And then of the people who saw the cart page, again, most of them didn't, left here, but that's typical cart abandonment. But some of them just stopped. Others went back to the monthly pass. Others, did other order forms or, were checking out terms and disclaimer stuff. Others went back to the homepage. But still, 30, let's roughly call it 30%. So what a 73% technically abandonment rate here, went through and completed to purchase monthly pass. So that kind of shows us how the funnel's working. And then my question is, and again, I'm not coming back here to see how it's going. I'm coming back here with an expectation that I'm assuming, in my case, I would forecast that I'm going to do between 1% and 3% of my conversion rate, which I'm doing, right? I'm at 2.63. So I want to make sure that's set first. If that is off in any way, shape, or form, my next thing is, because I know my numbers, I'm going to go through here and say, okay, well, this should be X amount. Is it? Right? This should be, X amount. Is it? This should be X amount. Is it? In my case, this should be between 8 and 12%. So that's a problem for me. 46% is awesome, but it's too awesome. And the reason it's awesome is because I get the exact right traffic, because I talk to fine people like you, right? And so that's how I generate traffic. Like I come out, I do a lot of training, I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of podcasting. And so, but I'm talking to individual audiences who are highly qualified. They come to my site and then they go through their actions. Cold traffic is not something we've nailed yet. But when I do cold traffic, these numbers will all drop down. And this will also drop down, but it shouldn't go below 1% or else something up here is going to be off. But I'll know where to focus. And that's where the whole forecasting and optimizing starts working together, because I'm going to know if this drops down to 2%, I'm like, whoop, nope, that should be wrong. So let's work on the sales page and figure out why they're not clicking through to the cart, because 8 to 12 is what should be happening, Yep. So just a little example of how you can actually start to use these. All right. So that was our funnelization report. And this, again, is just about the how, right? How am I achieving the results that I'm achieving, which is super, super useful. Of course, we also talked about audiences at the very end there.